Robert, welcome. I'm so excited to have you on this episode. And I know we're going to get into a lot of great conversations all around accountability and how we as leaders can hold our team accountable, but how they can hold us accountable too, I would imagine. Before we get into all of that, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and your journey as a leader and as a coach?
Yeah. I grew up in Southern California. My background has been marketing and sales leadership. I did that for most of my career. When I moved to Texas in 2010, I came out here to do marketing consulting, and I ran into the person who ran a franchise to have peer groups. And I'd never heard of peer groups before. And as I listened to the story, I thought, "Oh, that's me. That's what I want to do. I want to do that." And so I switched gears. At 50 years old, I stopped my career in marketing and sales and went off to lead peer groups. I've been doing it for 11 years now, and I just love it. It's the culmination of all the things I've learned in my career and all the things that God's equipped me to do and to be well. I get to bring that together in my business, and it's a lot of fun.
It's really awesome. I was going to say, I imagine that your experience in marketing and sales really helped in that transition too. I would imagine anyway.
Well, anytime you have to start over, I mean, here I'm in another state. I only know a few people and I'd only been here a couple years and I'm completely changing directions. And I had really had no skill. It's like, if you have something you want to do bad enough, you'll get by. And the first year that I ran peer groups, they were very kind to me. All my clients were very kind. And I still have the very first client I ever signed up 11 years ago. He's still in our group. And most of my clients stay here about 5 or 6 years or so on average. But I learned the hard way what not to do. I learned what people need. When you have a peer group, they're successful business owners. They don't need me telling them what to do. I'm not a consultant, or I don't run around telling people how to live their life, but I do ask good questions. That's what an executive coach does. And you have to have them self discover, because whatever you self discover, you're more likely to do it. If someone tells you you should go do this, you're like, okay. But if you think of it like, oh, I wonder what I should do. And then people say things and they share their stories and they ask you questions and you're like, hey, I bet I should go do this. And it's real clear to us because we're not emotionally attached to your problems. And we get a little bias in the way that we think things through, and it makes so much sense. But it's not till someone else stands on the outside looking at your world going, oh, that's not a good idea. But if you're honest and open with people, then you can get the help you need. That's the beauty of peer groups.
I can only imagine it must be a really thrilling experience to see the light bulb moment in
Yeah.
that group and in the individual when they have that eureka, I found it. And it's from that exploration and that investigating and inquiry that you lead, and just how cool that must be to see that light bulb moment.
It is, and I get to sit back and watch that. Sometimes you'll see someone who'll say, "Hey, I'm going to open up another division in another state," and we'll be like, "Well, didn't you say your marriage is really struggling and that you barely spend time with your family now? Why would you open another division?" And to us, it's like insanity, but to them, they've already thought it through. It's going to be easy. It's a great opportunity, and we get to save marriages and relationships and health. We've had people come down with cancer that we've walked the journey with them. We've had people go through divorces and face health issues and drug addictions with their kids. And we get to be there for each other. And there's something beautiful in that. But when you can sit back unbiased, looking at someone else's story and challenge them, then it helps them see things they wouldn't have seen otherwise. And those light bulb moments are pretty exciting.
That's very cool. Now, Robert, you'd mentioned that when you moved, nobody knew who you were and you were building this community, and now you're known as the accountability guy. But I have to ask you, if you could have a completely unrelated title for a day, and maybe it's something like the fun guy or the, what would that be for you? Would you attach yourself to a fun, interesting, intriguing title?
Well, I like to be known as Kathy's husband. My wife is the coolest person I ever met, and she is joy and wonderful and lovely and beautiful. And I've known her since I was 16 years old, and she is truly the nicest person I've ever met. So I think if I could be known in the world as Kathy's husband, I'd be pretty happy about that.
Love that. That's a great answer. I hope Kathy is listening too.
I'll play it for her later.
Please do. I think that's a fabulous answer. And Robert, that and what you've already shared with us, what a great example that leadership is really needed, not just in our professional lives, but in our personal lives too. And it
Yeah.
really is a journey, not just of professional self discovery, but of our whole self discovery. So That brings me to my question. You co authored a book, Nobody Cares Until You Do. So tell us a little about the inspiration for the book and your journey writing that.
Well, I'll touch back on what you just said for a second. Isn't it interesting how we say like there's a personal life and a professional life, but we're the same person everywhere? I'm Robert Hunt at work and I'm Robert Hunt at home. And the problem is that people have learned to morph up into something else to do one role versus another role. But if you could really learn to be you everywhere, not only does it make your life more harmonious because you're one person all the time, you don't have to switch gears to go to work and be a jerk and then come home and try not to be a jerk at home. You could just be you all the time. It makes you feel better. You're better at being you. And maybe part of that is getting to the clarity of who you really is. That didn't sound very grammatically correct, but I think you know what I'm saying. But you come to be aware of what you want to be, and then you just be one person everywhere. So the problem with most of the things in life, personally and professionally, is that we have become so comfortable with not being responsible for our actions. And we have got a world where you can say and do whatever you want and get away with it. You can light someone up on Facebook and you just walk away. You can say things that are completely lies and get away with it. I mean, we've had this really weird way that we've created this world today. And what happens is then you lose the opportunity to really get something done because then you play the victim role. And we're not even aware of it anymore. But at work and at home, we have got comfortable with blaming things, making excuses for things, saying there's nothing we can do about it, or just waiting and hoping it somehow gets better. Those four things keep us held down as a victim. And I watched that in my own life and I watched it in my own business and I see it with my clients. People who get it, who are truly accountable, they own it. They have the buck stops with them kind of a mentality. And it's not that they're just responsible, which means they take the blame for stuff. They actually proactively create the future they're looking for in their personal and professional life. That's real accountability. And there's freedom in accountability. If I'm a victim, everything happens to me. But if I own it, I have the power to control it and decide what I do and to pursue the life I want and the career and the marriage and the faith and the health. All those things are mine to control and to do what I want. It's still going to be hard work, but it's hard work being a victim. I think I'd rather have hard work being towards chasing the life I really want.
Absolutely. Do you feel like, speaking of hard work, in victimizing ourselves, we actually put more challenges in front of us, and the challenges that we do have compound and become greater because we have that, I call it problem stacking. We have that
Mm.
problem stacking mentality versus that problem solver mentality.
Yeah, that's a good word. I don't think I've heard problem stacking. What is it? The book on getting habits.
Atomic habits.
Atomic Habits
Yes.
talks about habit stacking, right? Problem stacking is the inverse of that, I guess. But in reality, yes, when you play the victim role, you open yourself up to a defeated mindset, which creates more victimhood. And so the simplest definition of accountability is you own it. And when you own it, whether it's good or bad, it's yours. But when you own it, you can do something about it. But if I'm a helpless victim, I blame the government. I blame my parents. I blame the schools. I blame my spouse. I blame the economy. We just always blame, or we make excuses for why things are the way they are. Sometimes we just say we can't do anything about it. And all these things, they just hold us stuck. I don't want to be stuck. I want to pursue the life I really want. In our book, Nobody Cares Until You Do, we have an assessment in there and we say, score where you are in your own life. How satisfied are you in your life today, in your personal and professional life? And then you step back and you look at it objectively and go, I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with that. Well, why? And then you have to honestly answer to yourself, why are you not satisfied? And that's when you see excuse and blame or say, well, I can't do anything about that. Or maybe it'll get better next year. Those are traps that keep you as a victim. But at some point in your life, when you go, wait, nobody cares if I'm fat, broke, unhappy with my marriage, miserable with my health, don't have a relationship with my kids. Nobody cares until you do. But when you care enough to do something about it, you have the opportunity to change everything. That's why I see accountability as freedom and power and exciting, not a bad thing. It's a very good, powerful thing.
It makes me think of the word discipline too, and oftentimes we think of discipline as a negative,
Yeah.
element that we kind of know we need, but we don't really like the word. And accountability rings in the same way in my mind that we look at it as a negative. And to your point, it's not. We need that in order to have that freedom to then thrive. And I'm curious, how do you help people come to that realization if they have a little bit of resistance to it or they feel the negative stigma around that?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I do for a living with my clients. Our peer groups are times of accountability, and nobody makes anybody do anything in our groups. They're all successful business owners. No one's going to tell you what to do in our groups. But if you want to change your life, you have to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't like this. I have this problem. I need this. There's something not working right. And when you're honest enough, then you can get the help that you need. So being vulnerable creates the opportunity for real accountability. And I think they're not seeing the connection yet. So I'm on this big quest to teach people that accountability is freedom and power, and it's not a bad thing. One of the things we've got to do is stop saying, I'm going to hold you accountable. I can't hold anyone accountable. I can't hold anyone accountable. And if you're saying that phrase, you're missing the point because I can say, Rebecca, I'm going to hold you accountable to get this done. And what happens if you don't get it done? I don't shoot you. There's not like this huge consequence. I can't fire every one of my employees every time they don't do something. So it has no teeth. And so we make this phrase, and all I'm doing is I'm actually holding myself as the burden to this problem because you're not going to do it if you don't want to do it. And unless you decide to be accountable, it doesn't get done. And if I fire you, then I'm the one accountable because I fired you, but then you leave and go to some other company and you're still not accountable. You just be irresponsible over there, right? So we've got to be able to have more conversations around this. I don't know the big light that's going to go off in the sky and everyone's all of a sudden going to go, oh, accountability is great. But we're going to try do the best we can, starting with writing a book that tells about the principles of accountability and the freedom that comes with that.
I love that. I love that you're sharing the message of the positive side and the need for it and how it can really empower us. And it's not meant to stifle us. At the same time, sometimes what I hear from others, especially newer leaders, managers, is the lack of empowerment and understanding around how do I actually hold myself accountable as a manager? And how do I build that sense of accountability and ownership in my team? And often, what I've seen, or at least noticed on a small scale, is that it can take the sort of guise or look of micromanaging.
Hmm.
And do you see that, or is there any kind of maybe correlation between a new manager trying to be accountable and create that and then transitioning, but they actually fall too far into a negative pattern?
Micromanaging is a great reason why we need accountability. No one can actually really micromanage. All we can do is bug other people. And the reason that most people micromanage, as the term is called, is that they don't really know enough about what they want you to do in order to proactively tell you what to do. They just can sit and look over your shoulder and check in on you a lot and go, well, that's not right. Why are you doing that? I don't want that. And they change it. They lead by correction is the term that I use a lot. And since I've not taken the time to put a plan together, to write documents out, to train you effectively, and I don't really even know what I'm doing, frankly, then all I can do is tell you that you did it wrong. Well, if we're going to be really building empowered people, we have to learn how to delegate well. And delegation requires clear and compelling communication, tools to do it well, training to do it effectively, and then you can have accountability. But the people have to want to be accountable because they feel empowered because they've practiced. They've got the tools to do it as fast as you do. What happens if you give me something to do and I don't do it quickly? You take it back. Oh my gosh, it's taking you forever. Give it to me. I'll do it in 5 minutes. That's because I don't know how to do it and I don't have the tools to do it like you do. So we have to go through that process. But the first part is clear and compelling communication so that people understand why we're doing, what's the purpose of it. That takes effort and time, and leaders don't want to do that. So they end up micromanaging, which is leading by correction, and it's a miserable journey for everybody.
I agree so much with that. I love that you share that because it really means we have to slow down if we want our team to be able to speed up. And how often can we be impatient because it's not happening fast enough where, well, people just don't understand or I can't take what I know and immediately transfer it. And
Right.
so the word patience comes to mind that we have to have that and build that within ourselves so that we can then coach and train up our people, our teams.
And I'll say small minded leaders who don't want to deal with that will always stay small because you won't take the bandwidth to test it out, write it out, practice it, define it, put in parameters, and then give it to someone and give them the time to learn it, to do it. We bring people on, they don't work out, we fire them, and then we go, see, it doesn't work out, employees. There's no good. Well, you didn't set them up to win. And if you're going to bring someone on, you have to proactively, that's accountability. You proactively create the story, the journey, the experience, knowing I want an empowered employee over here, knowing I've just hired this person who doesn't know anything about my company, and I'm going to have to get them from here to here. And if they fail along the way, it's my fault. I'm accountable because I didn't create a clear and compelling vision of what they're supposed to do. I didn't give them the tools or the training to do it. They cannot be accountable because I didn't do my job. So if I'm going to be accountable, I'm accountable to do the things up front to get the result I want, not just to take the blame. Taking the blame, that's being responsible. That's different than accountable. And so the leaders who say, oh, I'm responsible for all my people, that just means you take the blame. When they don't do it right, you get in trouble, you eat it. But you're in charge. Who's punishing you? You own the company. You don't fire yourself. That poor person who put their hope in working for you came in and invested their time to be a part of your team. And because you didn't want to put the effort in to create the success that was needed, they failed and then you fired them. So they gave up their time to work for you, but you didn't help them succeed. You didn't set it up to win. That's all on that leader. So we've got to create proactively a journey that helps people be able to be accountable because they know what they're going to do and they got a plan.
That's an excellent point. And I firmly believe that an onboarding process, even prior to your recruitment process, needs to set your new recruits up for success. But then talk to me a little bit about ongoing training and development. How do you build that, a strong arm of that in a company so that you're continuously improving your
Yeah.
employees?
It is sad to think how little we do training. It is really a huge lost art. And I think one of the reasons why we've hit the wall in productivity in the last couple of generations is we've lost the skill of training. Just because there is a document somewhere doesn't mean that it's right, but doesn't mean that it makes sense, and doesn't mean that with the changing environment it now works that way. I'm sure whatever documents were written by January of 2020, something had to change come March. And so we have to be an organization that is fluid and growing and aware of what's going on. But the guy who passes my Chick-fil-A sandwich through the window gets more training than most employees do. And I have a lot of clients in construction, and they'll be looking for someone for months. And then when they finally find someone, they're like, get out in the field, go, just go. Because we've needed you 2 months ago. So then the person's out there within weeks, they're struggling, they're making mistakes, they're screwing up stuff, costing tons of money. And then that person ultimately gets fired because they didn't do it the right way. But again, we didn't set them up to win. So we have got to get into this new idea of training is a long-term journey. It's not a 1 week onboarding. It's a 30, 60, 90 to get things going quicker. And you should be intentional like that. But we're constantly training. How often did I tell my kids to do stuff? I mean, he's 22. He still lives here while he's got his last year of college. Walks throughout the house, leaving cupboard doors open and stuff on the sink. I'm like, dude, pick up that stuff. He's 22. So how much time do we have to spend in training forever? It's never done. It's not a once a year event. It's not a first 90-day process. It's the life of your company. That's why you have regular meetings. We're training you. We're training you on the culture. We're training you on the new updates and guidelines. We're training you on changes in the organization. Do things change every quarter? Heck yeah. Why would you have a once a year meeting? What's the point of that? It's like telling my wife I love her when I get married, then I'll check in if it changes. That would be ridiculous. You tell them all the time. You reinforce the behavior that you want at the end. We've got to look at training as an ongoing, continuous process.
Well, Robert, that everything you said, that reinforces the idea too that we need to show up in our professional aspect of our lives the way that we hopefully are in our personal lives, and the kind of grace that we want to receive, and the understanding or the benefit of the doubt that we don't know everything. We need to offer to our employees too. Would you agree, disagree with that?
Yeah, that's how you build trust. You give someone the benefit of doubt. Again, going back to what we said earlier, that you've got to be one person everywhere. And so if I've created a world where I have to morph into somebody else to get the job done, it's broken. I need to be Robert Hunt at home and Robert Hunt at work. Now, the beauty of doing that is if I'm on the couch watching what did we watch last night? We watched the Winter Soldier, James and I, where he's quite the Marvel guy, and I like it too. But if I get a phone call at 8 o'clock from a client, I'm going to take the call. Hey, what's up? Hey, I've got this problem. Who should I call? Boom, talk to him, and then go back to the movie. I don't get all bent that my clients call me at 8 o'clock at night any more than I get mad that my wife calls me at 2 in the afternoon. It's my life. It's me everywhere. And because I'm one person everywhere, I can pop in and out of work and family and conversations and laughter and joy and still get things done proactively because I'm one person. We've got to get back to being that one version of ourselves everywhere. The consistency is what helps us do it better, and then we don't have to worry about work life balance, which there's no such thing. You just are always being you. Unless I'm goofing off playing, I'm working. Coming home and doing chores today is work. Cooking dinner is work. That's just life.
That's such a great and refreshing perspective. And I agree, you're right. There is no work life balance. I like to think of it as an ebb and a flow because there isn't that separation between work and life. Work is a part of our lives, also to your point. And there's going to be a time when you need to invest a little bit more into the personal
Yeah.
aspect. And sometimes when maybe work is a little bit more demanding, and if you have that expectation, then the expectation that we have 50-50 split.
No. No.
Yeah.
You know what it's like? It's like homeschool.
Yeah.
If you have anyone who has a homeschool kid, they can crank out in like 3 hours what it takes all day to do in a classroom because of all the other stuff they have to do. And so if we learn at work to be so focused on what we do, what takes us 8 hours to do, we really could do in a couple hours. We really could. But why does it take so long? Well, because we don't have good documentation of where to find stuff. So I got to wait for Joe to come back from his meeting to tell me it's in his drawer or to find out that this price list hasn't been updated. We're not building in systems and procedures and things that we do that make it easier to do our job, but we could literally get everything done in just a couple hours. And then we could spend the rest of the time dreaming, creating, researching, supporting one another, caring for our clients better, but we'd still be as productive. Half of the meetings we have are because someone doesn't trust someone else, and I want to be in the room when you talk about it so you don't say something bad about me or do something that I don't want you to do. And so we have meetings that everyone has to belong to, and then we have to go back and have another one because someone wasn't prepared. I mean, all these things we do without excellence, it's a huge time suck. And so I think if we could just look at building a place, a world where people are cared for, empowered, where we're diligent, we have processes, and we do that when we're small. I have written processes of everything that takes to get, I'm a 1.5 person company. My wife is my partner. She hangs out with me and she helps sometimes, but it's mostly me. Everything is written down. So if I was sick, someone could pick up a document and say, this is how you do this. Over the years, I've had to repeat it and write it down so I could be good at it so that as I get older and I want to bring people on or I can't do it, there's documentation. If I could do it with one man shop, everyone can do it. I'm not that smart. Everybody can do this stuff.
Well, I think you're pretty smart, Robert, especially after everything you shared with us. I do want to add, as a former homeschooled student, I completely agree. And I love that you mentioned that because something that homeschooling taught me, in addition to everything that I learned, was how to manage myself. And everything you're describing is how we can manage ourselves better to be efficient and effective. And to your point, you might be a 1.5 man band, and yet at the same time, you almost need to make yourself obsolete, especially as a leader, a manager, so that you can then empower those who are working alongside of you. And you have the time to do a little bit more creative thinking or do that higher level strategic thinking that helps continue to grow the team.
Yeah. And the reward of excellence is the efficiency that comes with it. And when you're efficient, you can be a human. If you're so stressed at work, someone walks in your office, don't bother me. I'm busy. I got this. I got a deadline. Go out, go away. And you're just so uptight because you didn't manage your time. You didn't manage the process. You don't know what you're doing. And so we can't be kind to people. And I can tell you every week I will have a dozen conversations with people who just need to be cared for. They're not my clients. These are just people I meet. And we'll be talking and I'll say, well, how's it going? Well, it's a tough week today. And hey, let me pray for you. Let me encourage you. But I make time for that. I have time for that because I don't book out my life. One of the principles that we've taught our clients and we follow is margin, where you create room in your life for the unexpected things to happen so you don't ever have overload. As a matter of fact, this Friday, I'm doing an online webinar on LinkedIn where I'm going to teach the principles of margin. But it is the thing that has allowed me to have a life that is joyful and rich and rewarding and very successful and profitable because you create room for the unexpected. You don't hit overload. When you hit overload, you make mistakes. You are not having fun. And these kind of things stack up into where your life is miserable. And so if you can create a world where you have room for the things that you don't plan for, you're more creative, you're more productive, and life is more fun.
That's a great way of thinking, Robert. And I want you to share that link with me because I know we'll have already recorded this and published after the webinar.
Yeah, that's
But I'm
right.
going to share this with all audiences prior to and tag you in that because while I have not used the word margin, I'm going to steal that word because I love that even better than what I use. I call it slack or buffer time. And to your point, I use it because and I teach my team in my own way. I'm sure I can learn a lot more from you, but I teach my team that idea that if we rush, that is when we make mistakes, also to your point. And there are going to things that happen unexpectedly, no matter what kind of industry you're in. So if we at least have control over our day to the point where we know what our priorities are and we know when and where we can pivot,
Yeah.
then we're going to be so much less stressed, at least the bad kind of stress, and be able to freely move throughout our day with a little bit more of that preparedness.
That's the homeschool version of work. I think we've got to go with this term. We got to let's coin this together today. Let's do the homeschool version of work. I can get everything done in 1 or 2 hours. The rest of the time is built in free time, which is called caring for other people, or creativity, which is called dreaming and researching and coming up with new ideas. We don't come up with new ideas anymore because we're all just so exhausted and overloaded. There's no creativity. And if we're going to do the homeschool version of work, let's get so good at what we do and so focused and so empowered that in 2 hours I knock out all the essential things. And then I'm caring for people, creating stuff, enjoying my journey, teaching others, training. Think how much we could get done if we could be this mindset. It'd be a very cool time.
I'm all for it. Let's do it. Well, we're spreading the word now. You've been spreading the word longer than I have. And so let's keep this momentum going because I think it's really important. If we learn how to manage our time better, everything you just said can happen and we can have that joy that you talked about in our work and in our personal lives. And we don't have to compartmentalize when we have fun time and when we have to get to work and do the tasks and get the
Yeah.
deliverables out. Yeah.
And even hard work is fun if we do it with kindness and respect. You know, if we've had to crunch many times where we do a couple annual retreats with our clients, and at the last few days, there's always a lot of things coming up and you're crunching, but we're laughing and we're having fun. It's like when you move a buddy into their house, you're lifting a couch up a stairwell, but you're laughing because you're with your friends. And I just think we could enjoy our life better. This is where we stop being victims and we say, well, I don't have a good job, then get another job. Well, I can't find a job. Don't make excuses. Stop coming up with blame and excuses and saying you can't or waiting to hope it gets better. It does not get better. It gets worse. But if you own it, then you say, okay, I don't like this. What are you going to do? And then you start the journey. That's why we wrote Nobody Cares Until You Do. The first half of the book is when you recognize the traps that keep you as a victim, when you get to the place where you go, wait, nobody cares until I do. And now we show you how to go do a plan, how to fix it, how to acknowledge reality, embrace the suck, find a solution and make it happen. That's what the second half of the book is all about. And we tell our own personal stories as well as all the other pieces and tools and give you, it's like a workshop, workbook to help you actively apply this to your life.
I love that you focus on finding the solution, like we were chatting about earlier. It's about problem solving. And if we're doing that for ourselves or if we're helping others, do you have any frameworks or approaches to problem solving that are your go to or good starters for those of us who are looking for that next step forward?
When we have issues in our group meetings, we do issue processing, and we'll take the issue and we'll lay it out. Hey, I've got this problem with this customer and we're really concerned. We've got too big a chunk of our business. What do I do? And they share their problem. And we have to bring people into our journey because we're too emotionally attached to our own story. And the unconscious bias that spins around in our heads, and we look at stuff and we don't see some things or we see things that aren't there. So when you have to explain it to other people and you have to write it on a board, truth comes out. And someone will say, well, you've got 80% of your business lined up with one customer. Well, yeah, gosh, that's ridiculous. And so then, well, he's a good guy. We're good friends. Yeah, until you're not anymore. And so we invite people in to our journey to get a different perspective, to get a different way of approaching it, to see it differently, to maybe break down some of those sacred cows that we just say, well, you just can't do that. I mean, there's no way I could. Yeah, you can. I did it in my business. Let me tell you how I did it. So I think really being vulnerable as everybody knows how to solve problems. Here it is. Do a SWOT analysis. Here it is. What can you do? What are your options? Let's go do it. So critical thinking isn't that bad. We all need to get better at critical thinking, but I think involving people into your journey and letting their version of critical thinking add to the equation and letting their version of reality go, dude, you've bought into your own story. That is not a healthy perspective. You invite people in, you get the kind of help you need to not drink your own Kool-Aid and to be able to get a real solution that will be working for you.
What are some of the limited thinking mindsets or problems that you see folks deal with and grapple with often? Is there a pattern that you ever notice, or is it really dependent on the individual?
It really is. Each of us has our own bag of crap, as I describe it. We walk around with a big giant bag of crap over our shoulders. When I was a kid, my dad beat my mom and beat us kids as a kid. And I grew up in a very weird environment. And then I grew up and we were really poor. And so I have all that stuff that's in my bag. And then I got married, then I got divorced. And so that's in my bag. And I've lost jobs and I've had health issues and I've had problems and family issues and all that stuff. We got a big bag of crap. Every one of us comes to work, comes to every place we go with that big bag. And the problem is it is affecting us. It's a limiting belief. Well, I just can't do that. Why? Because I'm this or I did that. And until you tell someone your lie, which is really what it is, they can't go, no, no, that's not true. One of the principles that is helpful in that is the IR principle. Sandler talks about it in their sales training. It's the identity versus role. And in our journey of going through the things we go through, we at some point will start to equate our role and our success in that role as what our identity is. And because we've been divorced or we got laid off or we didn't do good at school, we think we're lower than we are. You were born a 10. You will die a 10. God made you in the image of God. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You're perfect. Little children have no hangups. They jump vertically as they stand there waiting for something. They're just so full of joy. And they put a towel on and they're Superman until someone says, stop doing that. You're not Superman. Stop that. And we start to think of ourselves as less than the 10 that we are. But you will never do any role higher than the identity you believe you are. So if I only think I'm a 5, I'll never be a better husband than a 5. I'll never be a better daddy than I will as a 5. So the number one thing you've got to do is get yourself back up to a 10. Go back and claim the reality you are a 10. You are perfect. You might suck as a dad, and that's okay. You can work on that. You could take classes, you can get training, you can get coaching, you can go talk to other dads. There's a million things you could do, but you got to start by remembering you are a 10, and then everything can go up. But we've got some beat, broken, downtrodden people in this world. That's why if we really want to have teams that are really, really successful and growing, we got to care about them. We got to know what's in their bag of crap. And on a regular basis, we got to have moments and experiences where they can dump a little bit out and help them get back to the truth that they are a 10. So then everything else they do rises up with it.
It sounds to me, and something I've felt too, that it really is a spiritual battle. And I'm glad you bring in that faith element because it really is that unraveling of all of the conditioning and what others have told us we are. And when we recognize that we are valuable in the sight of God because He made us, then we don't have to worry about placing our value in the finite things of the world. We know we can have that greater value and greater purpose, and hopefully that opens us up to even more possibility and potential.
It is a catalyst for excellence. You cannot be fantastic if you don't believe you are fantastic. And so coming back to that reality of the 10 that you are, not because I'm this great anything, but only because of who God created me to be. But then we've got to aggressively work through that stuff. We've got to dump the bag out. We've got to talk. I started journaling a year ago and I'm 61. I started journaling a year ago. Missed a few years, but I really needed to work through some of my head trash. And I was thinking things that weren't true. But until I wrote them down and I looked at it and said, you're not that. Why would you think that? The power of the words is really big up here, but it's really weak on paper. And so when you just take some of these things that have got a hold on your brain and you dump it out on a piece of paper and you go, I suck. No, you don't suck. You're not a good communicator sometimes, or you're impatient. And then work on that. But don't let the lies put a chokehold on you. Dump them out, get them on paper, take a little bit out of your bag and share it with a friend. That's why when you do the satisfaction assessment, you go to our website, nobodycaresbook.com. Go, you can take the assessment for free. We don't even ask for your information. We just want you to have it and really be honest. If you're not happy with your marriage, say you're not happy with your marriage. If you're not happy with your finances, say you're not happy. But then when you're there, really look at it and figure out why. And then be honest with yourself. If you lie to yourself, you'll always be a victim. But if you can be honest with yourself, you have the opportunity to own it and do something about it. And then the magic bullet is share it with somebody. Say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And they'll go, no, no, you're not like that. It's what I feel. Okay, well, let's work on that together. I'm going to go on this journey and that's where accountability comes in because you declare to someone, this is what I don't like and this is what I'm going to do. They don't do it for you. They don't babysit you. They don't call you, remind you every week, but they care. And now you told someone. So now someone's going to ask you and a little bit of peer pressure goes a long way, but you can be awesome. You just got to own it.
I love that. And we're coming back to that idea of ownership too, and that tied to accountability that really does start with us as leaders of others, but as leaders in our own lives. And how much more potential, how much more can we do? And what greater impact can we have on others when we make that first start for ourselves?
Yeah. Isn't that cool? Think of the motivation that it should be for you to want to get out of your own way. I had a coaching session with a client today, and he's really trying to make some serious changes in his life, but he really doesn't believe in himself. He's just been through so much junk. It's a big bag of junk over his shoulder. And I just want to let your listeners know there's freedom in Christ. And if you don't know the faith that I have, which is a faith in Jesus Christ, it's free. And God loves you so much he died for you. And there is freedom in Christ. And so if you feel oppressed and locked down and you've given up, don't. You are a 10. You are created in the image of God, and he has a plan for your life, and he loves you. And I have found him be faithful and kind and full of grace and hold me up when I just felt horrible and give me forgiveness so many times, a million times over. And so don't give up today. I would encourage you to seek out the faith that you may have had in the past or that you never gave it a fair shake. Go and seek and find out what that faith is all about.
Amen. Thank you for sharing that, Robert. And another great reminder for us that it isn't that separation between professional and personal. It's all of us, our whole self, and how we show up, and knowing that that gift of life is free to us, and that when you can commit to your faith and commit to God, you can have that freedom and joy for the rest of your life. So I'm glad you shared that because my faith is important to me as well. And I know that for a lot of our guests and a lot of our listeners, they might be grappling with some personal elements that they're bringing into their professional life. And so I hope that that message resonates. And I know for me, it's a great reminder as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I think one of the best things you can do for your mental health is live out your faith, whatever your faith is. I would love people to believe what I believe, but if you don't, fine. Live out what you do believe, but live it out. Don't leave it at home. Don't visit it once a week or twice a year. Every day, whatever your faith is, even if you don't believe in God, fine. Then don't believe in God, but go live that out. Be the person you say you are. Don't be full of wishy washy confusion, torn. Stand up with what you believe. Tell people what you believe. The problem is most people don't know what they believe. They just don't like you telling them what you believe. They have to make their own decisions. I read a book that really challenged me in my own faith, and I had to start thinking, well, I don't really know that I actually believe that after all. And it's evident that some people don't believe what they believe because the way they live their life. They say they believe that, but then you look at their life, you're like, really? You have a different version of what I think we're talking about. And so be a student of it. Just like if you're going to be a good dad, you got to read a book on how to be a good dad. If you're going to be a good business owner, you got to read a book. You got to go to some seminars. You got to talk to people. Faith is the core of who we are. Whatever your faith is, it is the essential that is the core of who you are. Why would you leave that at work, at home all day when you go to work? Why would you not let it drive the way you treat people, the way you look at things, how you spend your money, how you spend your time? It is everything that you are. It's not a thing you visit and do. It's who you are. That's why people have so much loneliness and confusion and stress because they're not living out their faith. They just kind of tuck it away. You can bring your faith to work. It is legally allowed, at least in America, and you should, because it drives you. I don't know any faith out there that suggests you be a jerk. They all pretty much say, be kind to people, be caring, be nice, be honest. Those are common things no matter what your faith is. Wouldn't it be great if you had a workforce full of people who actually were kind and honest and caring? Whatever your faith is, own it, live it out, bring it to work every day.
We don't want to berate anyone. I appreciate you sharing that and sharing your faith and your belief as well, because I hope that wherever anybody is on that journey, their faith and their spiritual journey, they can see the joy and hear that in your voice and in your message and feel more empowered to live out their full life and live that out joyfully wherever they are showing up. So I'm glad that you shared that with us.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So I want to make sure that people can connect with you and you can share even more with them all the great value and wisdom you share with me and my listeners. So how can we find you online and connect?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. I write articles and have events. So you can always look up Robert J. Hunt in Texas and connect with me there. My website is nobodycaresbook.com. That's where the book is at. We love to have you go there and watch some videos and learn about the book and order a copy from us and tell us your story, share your satisfaction assessment. Let us see what you're doing so we can pray for you and encourage you on your journey. I read every single email that comes into that website. I have a business that I run these peer groups. I do executive coaching. I do workshops and leadership development sessions and retreats. And you can find more information about that at Ref Dallas, REF Dallas.com. Those are where I hang out. Those are my business opportunities. I really just want to make a difference. So if someone wants to talk to me, I'm always up to connect. I did put up a special URL for your podcast that if you go to Nobody Cares Pod, nobodycarespod.com, and you fill out the contact form there, put in the code word bad bosses, and I will mail you a copy of our book at no cost. If you really want the book and you can't afford it, I'd love to give you a copy of the book as my gift to you. For the first two people who fill out that form, I'll mail it out.
Robert, thank you so much. That is such a generous gift, and the gift of your time, I'm tremendously grateful for today because you've given so much value, packed so much great wisdom into one episode. I hope maybe we can have another conversation in the future too, because I know you have more to share. But in the interim, I hope all of our listeners will take you up on that offer. Fill out that form. We'll have the link below, however you're listening, wherever you're listening. And of course, to our audience, thank you so much for joining us. Robert, thank you again. It's been my pleasure. And to all of you, we will catch you on the next episode.